Sometimes people get wealthier while other people get poorer, but the middle class and the poor right now, the poor are out on the streets and the middle class can't pay their bills, and it's just starting. But the collapse, I think that I'm talking about is the inevitable collapse of the economy because we won't be able to afford it, and that can come quickly. The downturn can be very, very vicious. It can be very, very fast. Well, I think in general, when you have inflationary pressures that comes from increasing the money supply, it's never even. Everybody doesn't suffer alike. And that's one of the problems with it, because some people suffer more than others, and some people make money and make more profits when there's inflation. But the inflation tells you whether the people are getting wealthy or not, or poorer. And one characteristic of this situation is labor and wages never keep up with prices going up once the price movement starts. See, for years we were printing money like crazy. We tripled the money supply between 08 and 22, and the inflation didn't seem to be bad, and the stock market was doing well. But when the prices in the retail market started going up, they lose control. But the wages never keep up, and that's why there's resentment between the wealthy and the poor and the middle class, because that's, to me, the most destructive thing about inflation. Some people say, well, what if all the why is inflation so bad, inflating the money supply, that is, because everybody's salary is going to go up, and everybody's prices are going to go up, and it'll be even Steven. But it doesn't work that way. That's right. Some people suffer, and that's why the real test is, what are the housewives and what are the shoppers saying when they buy groceries, and what are they saying when they buy gasoline? Well, we have to recognize what it is, and one principle is that if an individual or a company or a government, a country, spends beyond its means and lives beyond its means, it will be destined to live beneath its means, because you have to pay for it. I think that there's a lot of effort. It's the biggest political issue going on right now, but they're starting with the wrong premise, because there have not been very many people in the government. I met about 4 that I considered an understanding of the free market, and why you should have sound money, why you should have commodity money, why you should not have interference with interest rates, you shouldn't have a central bank. And that is where the real problem is. But if you start with, this is a management problem, it's Powell's fault, or it's somebody, we need better management and all. No, we need a different system. This system doesn't work. It has never worked in history. And we had a token relationship of our dollar to gold all through my lifetime until August 15, 1971, when that was severed. And then we lost the unit of account. There's no definition of a unit of account, and that makes for a chaotic market, and it makes it very difficult. And all the government can do and all the politicians can do, and just look at it, spend more money. And right now, today, they're bragging, and the Democrats are bragging about Biden. He is on a roll. He got 4 big bills passed. He's going to solve the problem of inflation. Well, they all spent money, and it's all inflationary. So it's all a farce. But I think the basic problem, they come from the wrong premise, that you can have a world currency, which is so important, don't have market interest rates, and then try to run an economy because you don't have savings. People don't save. That's not where capital comes from. Capital comes, in a sense, from the Federal Reserve creating more to dilute the capital that exists. And it's just it's so far removed from a market economy, so people don't know about it, and they don't argue the case, they don't teach this, so therefore they're just looking for better managers and better legislators, and people who have to sacrifice a little bit, all kinds of nonsense, or change the definition. It causes recessions and depression. But no, we don't have a recession. We just changed the definition of it to make it sound better. But we can't get away with that for very long. The people are waking up. They know whether they woke up over all the nonsense associated with COVID and all the lockdown, and the people are waking up now. Right now, there's an enlightenment about how much money should we be sending to Ukraine? What are we doing there? And we've been doing this. We've been doing it since World War II. We fight these wars. They're not declared. And there's no end to them. And because we have a special situation, wealthy country, a lot of natural resources, a remnant of the free market, and people trust the Americans to print money because everybody in the world wants the dollar now because things are rocky. But that's not the solution. What we need is a sound currency and an understanding of how a market works and why we should never have a group of people in secret decide what interest rates ought to be because they don't know. You can't. People ask me, what would you do, Ron, if you were there and you had to set interest rate? I go, I'd resign. I don't know what the interest rate should be. The market will. Without that, you can't run an economy very well. So that is, it was a concern and still is a concern, but the collapse I think that I'm talking about is the inevitable collapse of the economy because we won't be able to afford it, and that can come quickly. And the downturn can be very, very vicious. It can be very, very fast, and the only chance we have now. See. It's not like you have to be clairvoyant to predict, inflation and a recession. But the one reason why I continue to talk about it and think it's important is that it doesn't have to happen. We should have prevented it. It's sort of like trying to stay out of a war. We could stay out of a war by maybe making sure they declare the war and know what they're doing. But no, right now, the inflation has occurred. The debt is there. We're not going to pay it off in a normal, honorable, moral fashion. So we are going to continue until the market wins. The market always wins, and the market will say there will be a liquidation of debt. It's been known for thousands of years that the debt gets wiped out, and then we have to do it. But we don't have a replacement for it. Marxists that are very vocal right now, they actually like the idea of chaos because that gives them a chance to clean the slate and start this new world order with a Marxist system. And of course, that's what we have to work to avoid. And right now it's up for grabs. Well, we don't know what the precipitating event will be. We don't know whether it will start tomorrow or whether it will be a bankruptcy announcement, something to it. But the bubble is there, the debt is there, and I would say the measurement of debt is the best way to tell how distorted it is, the system is, and therefore it's fragile. It's and we haven't. It's sort of like we built this huge skyscraper, but we never had a measuring rod, so it was a mishmash. It was just building it, but they didn't have a yardstick. And we built this economy, and we don't even have a yardstick, and so the values change, and it will stop. The debt has to be liquidated. The preference I would have is, quit spending, balance the budget, don't accumulate any more debt. But politically, having spent a little bit of time in Washington, it's not going to happen. They're not going to do it. So the market will win out. Just like the market wins out, the government can do things to sort of suppress prices going up, but the market wins out. And the market went out with the breakdown of Bretton Woods. They artificially told us the dollar was as good as gold. And on the surface, it looked like it, but the predictions were correct. Is when I got involved in studying this in the 60s, they said the Bretton Woods would collapse. And that was my confirmation in August 15th of 71, is it did collapse. The market said, you're faking, you're lying, you're printing money like crazy, and you will not be able to honor the dollar at $35 an ounce. So, and that's what will happen to our burden of debt. We will finally, just printing more money right now, when COVID hit and the downturn was occurring, it sort of, the extra money did perk things up. People got checks. and and it helped the stock market and things like that. But that's all temporary. And the comparison I made was it's sort of like a drug addict. I mean, if they're addicted, they always feel better when they get it. So when you inject the money, until the point where the patient and the economy is so sick, just injecting more money instead of temporary reprieve, you get the confirmation, we're doing the same thing again. This is terrible. The prices are not going up 10% a year, they're going up 30% a year. That's been more the history of monetary policy than that the government and a country turns around and changes their way of living. With hands-off position, the debt is liquidated. In 1921, we had a serious depression. It lasted for a year or so, and GDP crashed. But back then, they didn't believe in propping it up and prolonging the agony. In a year and a half, the depression was over. But what we are doing now is we prolong it. So there's a bigger bubble, bigger distortions, more regulations, more confusion, and it's a much bigger problem that has to correct, which means that there has to be a default. And the default comes from paying off all the bills with printed money. I mean, what was the reason why our government, our Federal Reserve in particular, for the last 10 or 15 years, I think it's since 2012, that our policy was, we need more price inflation. Why aren't the prices going up? They want something to help liquidate the debt, take down the real debt. So they wanted, well, what we want is 2% inflation, 2% destruction of the currency, which always never made any sense to me about that. Why would they do this? I said, well, you wait until you get 2%. You're going to have 4% before you know it. And nobody remembers when you had prices going up at a 2% rate, probably for about 6 months maybe, or not even that long. And right now, I think they're destined to go much higher. The debt has to be liquidated. It'll be liquidated because they will continue to print the money and the debt will be paid off. Some people will just default and not pay. Sort of like the student debt, the student debt, that's just gonna fade away because they already don't have to make payments on it. So there will be a lot of that type of default where they just quit paying. But the big default for government can't just say, okay, that's a treasury bill, we're not going to give you any money for that. We'll give you your money back. Right. But instead of giving you $1 worth of dollar, it's going to be worth about 10 cents. High prices. See, a lot of us talk about the value of the currency, and the dollar has been strong, against other currencies because they're worse than we are. But I tell people that's not your measurement of the dollar and your well-being, because you measure it when you go buy stuff. And if you're running out of money, most people still say, we don't have enough money. Government should send me more money so I can buy my gasoline. But the prices are going up because of this liquidation. And it's a terrible position to be in, to allow it to run. No politician could say, okay, just let it go. No, you have to do it. So you print more money. And the big question is, which is worse? Stopping the printing of money, or, printing it and then lead to this runaway inflation. And there's no answer. They're both bad because they're correcting the mistakes. We will be living beneath our means. The real tragedy and the political threat is that some people will be able to preserve their wealth and even benefit. And it is true. Sometimes people get wealthier while other people get poorer. But the middle class and the poor right now, the poor are out on the streets, and the middle class can't pay their bills. And it's just starting.